Olá, Tiago Faria.pt. Este é o episódio número 38 do podcast do Tiago. Como vocês já devem saber, eu gosto muito de copywriting e, portanto, eu hoje trouxe mais um daqueles mega craques que eu gosto muito de acompanhar online. Ele chama-se Doberman Dan. Ele já nos vai explicar um pouco sobre a origem do seu nome. Ele é um Direct Response Marketer, portanto, um marketer de marketing direto, no fundo, e é um dos mais respeitados copywriters dos Estados Unidos. Ele trabalha numa variedade de nichos de mercado, mas a sua maior especialidade é no fitness e no bodybuilding. Já escreveu anúncios e conteúdos para Muscle Fitness, Penthouse, Muscle Mag, uma catrafada de outras revistas e edições. E o seu grande mentor foi o Gary Halbert, durante um ano e meio, que é um dos maiores copywriters de sempre. Hi Dan, welcome to my channel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invitation. Oh my gosh, I almost slipped into Spanish. I learned one language. I learned Spanish instead of Portuguese. I was going to say thank you for the invitation, but I almost said the Spanish
Invitación.
word. Exactly.
Actually, it's very different from Portuguese. In Portuguese, we say convite. So there are some nuances that you wouldn't be that easy to capture. But yeah, thank you so much for being here.
I on several. I understood several words in the Portuguese.
Really?
Introduction, so I know. I mean, there are some similar words, so I got part of it.
And are you more used to the Brazilian accent or the European accent, which is quite different?
Definitely more used to the Brazilian accent.
Of course, yes. So it's even harder. We close much more our mouths. Brazilians are much more. They say all the vowels, so it's easier for everyone. But our accent is also beautiful, I think. So I made quite a short intro in Portuguese about yourself, but for those who don't know you, could you give him a quick intro of who you are and what you do?
I would be happy to.
Amazing.
First of all, I live in sunny Florida. And when we first started, when you and I started talking before you recorded, the sun was out and shining in the window and it looked fine. Then all of a sudden it went behind the clouds. So I'm going to turn on my light here.
There we go.
Otherwise people are going to think, why is that guy sitting in the dark? When we first started talking, I wasn't in the dark.
The sun shining.
So my introduction is, I guess I'm what you would call a serial entrepreneur. I decided that I had a job. I had a civil service job. I was a police officer, and somebody introduced me to the Amway business, which I'm assuming people in Portugal know about that business. It's all over the world. It's the multi-level marketing where you recruit people and excuse me. So
MLMs, right?
Yeah, MLM. I didn't know anything about it. All I knew is they started drawing circles and all I saw was like $2,138 a month when you reach a certain level. And I thought, I could quit my job. And that started me on the path. I failed pretty badly at that business. But at least it started me in the direction like, you know what? I like this idea of having your own business. So while I had my full-time job, I kept starting business after business after business with the hope of that I could leave the job and just be full-time self-employed. And for 9 years, all these businesses failed and I just kept getting deeper and deeper in debt. And finally I discovered direct response marketing and copywriting.
Yes.
Because I bought, what was it called? I bought a product by Dan Kennedy called Magnetic Marketing System, where he taught that. And then based upon that, I started my first business using direct response marketing. And this was prior to the internet. Mm-hmm. So back then it was a mail order business. You know, I ran ads in magazines and direct mail. And and so that business, like a little less than 12 months after I started it, I was finally making enough money where I could quit my job. Only took 9 years, you know. But so that's what I've been doing ever since. I've been using direct response marketing and copywriting to start my own businesses and run and build my own businesses. And then in 2012, I sold a nutritional supplement business I had and started making myself available for hire as a marketing strategist and copywriter for hire.
That's amazing. You basically found like the ingredients, copywriting and direct response, and then basically just reuse that machine to create multiple businesses successfully, right? So
Yeah.
that's really the secret sauce. And so you told me you discovered copywriting through Dan Kennedy, right? And can you tell us quickly about when did it happen? The mentorship with Mr. Gary Halbert, was it a few years later, or when did it happen and how?
Well, I found out about Gary Halbert because of Dan Kennedy, because I subscribed to Dan Kennedy's newsletter, and he talked about Gary Halbert a lot. But when I first heard about Gary Halbert in Dan Kennedy's newsletter, and I thought, I got to find this guy. And it was not easy to do because, I mean, this was really before the internet. And I finally tracked him down and had to send a letter to his office. Like say, hey, could you send me information about your newsletter? Because Dan Kennedy always talked about Gary Halbert's newsletter. And of course, he sent me a direct mail letter selling his newsletter, and I subscribed to that. And so he wrote a newsletter about how to get somebody's attention, like somebody who's hard to reach, how to get their attention. And I took that technique he taught and turned it around on him. For some reason, I just felt a connection to him. He and I grew up in the same hometown. We didn't know each other, of course, but we grew up in the same town in Ohio, this little town called Barberton. And I guess we kind of had a similar mindset. I just felt a connection to him. And I thought, I'm already somewhat successful at this direct response marketing stuff and this copywriting stuff. I feel like if I could work with this guy somehow, this would accelerate my progress. So I used that technique that he taught in his newsletter to get his attention. And then I kept sending stuff to him, usually monthly, to like make sure I kept his attention, that I stayed on his radar, so to speak. And then, finally, after months and months and months of doing that, he wrote a newsletter about Costa Rica, and I contacted him and said, hey, Costa Rica sounds pretty good. Can you tell me more about it? And he called me and told me about his trips to Costa Rica. And so I said, thanks, Gary. The next time I reached out to him, I sent him an email, and it was like just a month later after I spoke. And I said, hey, Gary, I really liked what you had to say about Costa Rica. So I sold everything I had and moved there. I'm living there now. And I mean, that really got his attention. And so he said, hey, the next time I'm down there, let's meet for dinner. And we did. And then that eventually led to us working together. Wow. And then it led to the next time he came to Costa Rica, he said, hey, would you mind if I just stayed at your place for the weekend instead of a hotel? And I said, yeah, sure, Gary. And he wound up staying with me for like 4 months.
Wow, that's incredible. Such a story. And it was a true inspiration, right, for you. You developed even further in the skill of copywriting. And what exactly excites you the most about copywriting? What do you feel that it really is why is it your life nowadays?
I think what I like the most about it is, and this is what attracted it to me in the first place. When I started my first mail order business, I kept trying all these other traditional businesses, or like that MLM business. Everything was face to face. Like you had to prospect and you had to meet people, and you're always, hey, nice to meet you. You're always like this really outgoing, aggressive person, always talking to people. That's not me. I'm an introvert. I like keeping to myself. I don't like being in crowds for very long. I don't like being the life of the party where you show like, hey, how you doing? That's not me. I mean, I can play that role when I have to, but I'm an introvert. And I love the fact about the mail order business. I thought, this is great, man. I could put an ad in a newspaper or a magazine, or I can send things in the mail, never talk to anybody, and they send me money. And still to this day, I mean, that's what I like about it. I like coming up with an idea, writing the copy for it, sending out the emails, putting up the website. I still send direct mail too. And I haven't I haven't recently, but just, I mean, within the past couple of years, I've run ads in magazines too. So I still do that, but I just love that fact that you can create things, put words together and send them in an email, put them on paper, put them on a website, and people send you money, and you never have to leave your house. You don't have to go talk to anybody face to face.
That's incredible. It's so true. And in your experience, so for someone that doesn't know anything about it, what is the best way to approach copywriting for someone who has no knowledge but desperately needs it for their business? It's clear that everyone needs it in every sense of the business.
So I know a shortcut. If anybody's interested, there is a shortcut. I'm not going to say it's easy, but there is a shortcut. And I'll share that with a brief story. So I started playing guitar when I was 7 years old and was self-taught. And I got really good really quickly. But I played rock music and pop. That's what I always played. Then about age 18, my band director in high school introduced me to jazz, and I fell in love with jazz. And so I asked him, like, how do I play jazz? And he said, well, you have to study music theory. You know, it'd be great if you go to a music college and study music theory. I couldn't, my family was poor. I couldn't go to university and study music. I couldn't go to university, period. But so I just started studying music on my own and music theory. 30 years later, I still could not play jazz. And finally, this one guy gave me the shortcut. He was a professor of music at a university in Tampa, Florida, like 2 hours from me. And I drove down, he gave private lessons, and his main instrument was guitar also. I drove down there, took a private lesson with him, and he just starts asking me questions. Tell me what you know. And I start spitting out all this theory, you know, like, yes, well, I know I know these modes, and I know over this scale you can play, over this chord you can play this scale, and I know that this works because of this, and blah, 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 and Mixolydian and Lydian, and I start spewing out of this theory. And he says, okay, we're good. All right, great. Let's play some music. And I just sucked. You know, he plays a regular jazz standard that every musician knows, Autumn Leaves. And I sucked. And he said, listen, I am a professor of music at university, and you know more about theory than I do, but you still suck playing jazz. So he says, let me show you the shortcut. And he goes to his closet and pulls out this big, thick 3-ring binder and drops it on the table with a big thud. And he goes, this is my transcription book. Every time I hear a musician play a line, you know, play a little, a snippet of something, to use the language analogy, maybe a phrase of something, a sentence that I like, I listen to it over and over and over. So I get it in my head until the point I can sing it. And then once I'm able to sing it, I figure it out on the instrument. And then when I figure it out on this instrument, I write it down by hand in this big book. And then I just practice it over and over and over till it just gets ingrained and becomes second nature. And he said, that is what you've been missing. 30 years you've been studying theory, and the theory hasn't made your playing progress. Transcribing is what you need to do. And I thought back to it, and I thought, you know, that's brilliant, but I should have been able to figure this out, because that's exactly how I learned copywriting. Yeah. I didn't want to study anything. When I was first starting, I just needed money, right? Like I wanted to start I wanted a successful business. I needed money because I hated my job. I want to get out of that job. Yeah. I didn't study theory. None of that. I just watched what Dan Kennedy was doing, how he sold that kit, that system I bought, the magnetic marketing system, how he sold it. I just basically copied that. In other words, I transcribed what he was doing, yes, applied that to a different market. I created a course that at that time I was selling to the bodybuilding market, and just took what I saw him doing and transcribed it, so to speak, and used it for the bodybuilding market. And I mean, I got results really quickly. later, when I found out that I, was really super interested and I liked this marketing and copywriting stuff, later I studied it and bought books. But how I got going and got good enough in the beginning to make money is I just emulated what other successful people were doing.
Absolutely. That's what I hear over and over. You just have to write a lot. You have to write by hand, right? Is that something you used and it really something you defend you should be doing? Write by hand makes a difference?
It does. I mean, it works. That was Gary Halbert's biggest thing. He said you have to handwrite out a successful copy. So reading a lot of copy, successful copy, like it's even old controls. A control is what they call a piece of copy that is currently successful or been successful in the past. Even like really old stuff from 100 years ago, right? It's because it all applies. Human nature hasn't changed.
Yes.
Reading a lot of copy and in writing copy, and the best way to start writing world-class successful copy is taking a piece that is currently or in the past been very successful and literally write it out by hand, because what you're doing, you are literally writing out successful world-class copy. It's not yours. You didn't produce it, but you're training your brain how to write world-class copy. It really does work. It's tedious, I admit, but it really does work.
So you think that's actually the most difficult part in developing your copywriting skills? It's very tedious experience that you have to go through until you have the results, right? You'd say that
it's just, it's just how we learned a language. Okay. So
sure.
When you were first learning your first words at age 2, your parents didn't sit you down with a book of Portuguese and tell you, okay, this is how you conjugate a verb. No, they just said to you, they just said a word and probably repeated a word, and then you repeated it back. And eventually, like that gets ingrained. When you're handwriting out copy, there are certain things you're gonna write and you're gonna think, "Ooh, I like that," And it gets in here. Everything is recorded in here, and then later on, the way it works is actually pretty amazing. Later on, when you're not even thinking about it, that when you are creating your own copy, that stuff will come out because you put it in here, you hand wrote it, and it'll come out.
It becomes imprinted in your subconscious, right? Somehow, it just comes out eventually. It's really true. I really know and felt it somewhat. And what do you think was the biggest mistake you've made at the beginning of your career as a copywriter? Anything that would delayed a bit your progression, or that you could have done in a different way? Do you remember anything?
Oh boy, there have been a lot of mistakes. So a really big one was after I started my mail order business in the bodybuilding market, I was initially selling a manual, a course. It was a manual and some audios and a video. And then later I figured out that people in that market, they really wanted to buy supplements. So I started selling supplements, and one in particular was really successful to my customer list. So I started running ads for it, and it was really successful. I was making money. So I was running ads in the magazines, and I was getting new customers and making money when I got a new customer. And like, for example, let's say I invested $1,000 on an ad in the magazine. Oftentimes I get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 back in sales. And I was just starting in direct response marketing. So I'm thinking, this is normal, right? And then I later started running ads to more of a mass market for that product. I started advertising it for health reasons in newspapers. And what happened was, like, I wasn't making any money. I would get a new customer. Let's say let's say, it cost me $100 to get a new customer and it was $100 sale. I'm not making any money. And I thought, oh gosh, this is a failure. Mm-hmm. What I didn't realize, what I understand now, the back end is the most important part of the business. When I say the back end, what that means is selling products to your existing customers. So on the first sale, if you don't make any money on that, you just get a customer, or maybe even you lose a little bit of money. Well, you make your money by reselling them additional products after the first sale. Well, I didn't know that. Knowing what I know now, that success I had in newspaper, now I know it's success, but back then I thought it was a failure. I had discovered a way to get thousands and thousands and thousands of new customers every month for free. Knowing what I know now, that business could have made enough money to buy me my own island in Portugal. Are there islands in Portugal?
Yeah, the Azores, Madeira, in the middle of the Atlantic, exactly. They're beautiful.
Okay, so as long as they're little ones, I probably could have made enough money. This is back in the mid-90s to buy my own island in Portugal. I didn't know what I didn't know. Now I know that, and I look back and, well, sometimes I still kind of kick myself, but that was a big mistake. It took me years to figure that out. Like finally I figured out, wait a minute. I make my money by selling additional products,
Exactly. And it's the easiest sale in the world to sell to current customers, right? They already bought from you. So, okay, show me more. I trust you. I like your product. So, right.
It's even easier. Like when I had my bodybuilding supplement business, there were times like, okay, geez, I'm not making enough money. I need money coming in because I have these expenses coming out. I'd sit down and quickly write out some copy that really wasn't that good. I mean, basically what it said, hey, remember me? I'm Dan. You bought this product from me. Hey, I got something else I want to show you. It's this product. The relationship's already established. They already bought something from you. They know you. It's just so much easier to make a sale to them.
Exactly. And now starting to go a bit more to the fitness area. Imagine that a business owner of a gym or a fitness instructor would only have 30 days to go from 0 leads online to fill up the capacity he has for his gym or for his practice. What would be the 3 things that you would consider doing first, to go to fill his capacity?
So if somebody needed to get new customers fast, in fact, this was prior to the internet. I actually used to sell a course that I created for gym owners, teaching them how to use direct marketing to get new members. So the first thing I would do is try to locate people who already have your ideal customers as their customers. Mm-hmm. So who that would be, like, I don't know. So you'd have to think, okay, what other business sells to people who would be my ideal customers? So in the case of a gym owner, what other local business sells to people who would be ideally suited for this person's gym membership? Mm-hmm. And then try to do a joint venture deal with them where you basically just ask them, like, hey, may I contact your customers with an offer? And in exchange for that, I will give you whatever you work out, I will give you half of their first month's gym membership or whatever, Mm-hmm. In contacting them. I mean, if they have them on an email list, that's like the quickest way to do it.
It's the easiest, yeah.
But if it's a brick and mortar business, how else can you contact them? What can you possibly send a letter to them? Mm-hmm. What other ways can you contact them? That's like the first thing I would look at doing, because that person, that business owner, has a relationship established with those customers. Mm-hmm. And you basically get their endorsement. He's going to say, hey, I'm Dan, you're doing business with me now. Thank you for that. I'd like to introduce you to Tiago, who has a gym at this location. And I think he's got a great gym. And, I want you check out what he says because I trust him. Now you've just been endorsed by this guy, which is really powerful, right? Because they already have a relationship with this business owner. They trust him. And then, you make your offer. It's so much easier than trying to get new customers.
Yes.
Other method, what I call cold methods, running ads or sending direct mail or stuff like that.
That's genius. And not many people think about that. That's a super mega tip we have here. Thank you so much for that. And what do you think would be some major pitfalls to watch out for when you're kind of trying to promote your business, your fitness business online? What should you avoid doing, or some common mistake you see other businesses doing?
Here's a common mistake I see that I actually don't hear many people talking about.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in the state of Ohio, which is considered the Midwest here in the U.S. And there actually are cultural differences here in the U.S. based on geography.
Oh,
right?
yes. It's a huge country.
It's so big. Like, people who haven't been here don't realize this. Like, the culture in the South is so much different than in Ohio, or like the culture in the southern states is so much different than New York City. They're almost like different countries. So in the Midwest is notorious for teaching people what a famous saying is: don't get too big for your britches, which is hard to translate. Like, don't get too big for your pants. In other words, don't get a big head, don't get a big ego, don't brag, be humble. So like that is ingrained into us from a young age. And when you're promoting yourself, that doesn't work. Like, a saying I'm fond of is if nobody blows their own horn, there would never be any music. So you have to learn to, quote unquote, blow your own horn. Or as Gary Halbert used to call it, he called it self-aggrandizing. It's a form of bragging, but done hopefully in a way that doesn't turn people off. You have to find what is unique about you, and there's always something unique about you. Okay, so if there are other people who do what you do, well, it's probably going to be really difficult to compete with them on price. Maybe it'll be difficult to compete with them on location. It's the one thing that they can't compete with you on is you.
Yes.
I would say a big mistake I see people making when promoting themselves is not finding that unique thing about them. I call it the USP. Direct marketers say that stands for unique selling proposition. I say it stands for unique superpower. You need to find your unique superpower. It's what is unique about you, right?
Yes.
And then use that in promoting yourself. Because in reality, I love direct response marketing. I love marketing. I love copywriting. But when it comes down to it, people don't do business with a business. People do business with you. So you need to find that uniqueness about you. We writers call it a voice. You need to find your voice and just promote that unique superpower about you. And it's genuine. It's not made up. It's not being false. It's not being fake. It is being the best version of you. And anybody who has been on a first date understands this, right? Your first date, you are the best version of you. That's the you need to be when you promote yourself.
You highlight your best, how do you say? I don't know, say it in English. Yeah, your best not skills.
Yeah, qualities.
Qualities, exactly.
Like, so for example, I've talked a lot about my experiences as a police officer and then relating them to marketing. because like I don't know anybody who else. I don't know any other marketers who promote themselves. I'm sure there are some, but I don't know of any in my world who can talk about that. So that's a unique thing about me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The easiest way to differentiate yourself. Everyone has its own uniqueness, and you just have to grab onto it and really promote it as much as you can. That's awesome. So we have an audience question that I recorded previously. He's called Luis. He has also he has a blog. He promotes his own fitness diet products. So he asks, being a seasonal thing, especially here in Portugal where people make diets for the beach during summer, how to approach the rest of the year, he asks. What should he focus on when there's less interest in losing weight?
That's a good question. I've learned some things about marketing diets, and you know, the same lessons I learned in the bodybuilding market, right? The bodybuilding market, everybody wants to be big and strong. And there are the reasons people say why they want to start a diet or why they want to lose weight. There are those reasons, but then there are the deeper emotional reasons that are often unstated, right? So they might say, oh, well, you know, spring will be coming up soon or summer will be coming up soon. So I'd like to go to the beach and I'd like to wear this new bikini. Well, I mean, that's not the real reason. The real reason is they know they're going to go to the beach with their sister-in-law, who's always thin and looks great and always makes these nasty comments about, you know, her sister-in-law's weight. It's like, this person wants revenge. You know, she goes, I'll show you. That's like the real reason. You actually have to hit on those things in your marketing and in your copy. You have to understand the deeper emotional reasons why people want those things. And then you need to talk about those in your copy, or at the very least, you know, if you don't talk about them directly, you need to at least kind of imply it. When I sold to the bodybuilding market, I used to talk about it directly. Like I didn't even try to be subtle about it. You know, like, you know, imagine when you have, you know, the big power muscular arms, imagine how, you know, that cute girl that you see every Friday at the restaurant, imagine how she's going to react, you know, because like those guys, that's what they really, I want to get big and buff so, you know, I can attract the chicks. So it's like knowing the deeper emotional reasons. And I do know something else about the weight loss market is food is really important to them. Like this angle, here's you can eat all this food, you know, and they see this picture of a pizza and dessert and ice cream, and you can eat all this food and lose weight. Well, you know, and then you disclose that, yes, you can eat that food like once a month, right? In the product, not on the copy. In the product, you disclose, sure, you can eat that food like once a month, but the rest of the time you need to be eating healthy and doing exercise, right? But if you use that in the copy, like, yeah, it's going to be nothing but vegetables and you living on a treadmill for the next 90 days. That's just not going to work.
No,
it's almost somehow or another, you know, you need to structure it so it's not this Spartan diet. You can still enjoy some fun foods every now and then, pizza and all that stuff. I know that's been really important in the weight loss market.
Just going back quickly to the deeper emotions you mentioned. Imagine in the case of Luis, I think he sells for women in their 40s trying to lose weight. How do you discover those deeper emotions if you're not part of the audience? You know, is it through interviews? Is it how else could you try to explore that?
Well, the best way I've found is if you could just talk to people in the market. It's easy. It's easier to do when it's like the general health markets, because I tell people usually in most pharmacies there's like a couple chairs there where these people in that market, it's mostly older people, baby boomer age or senior age, they sit there while they're waiting for their prescriptions. If you can just go there to the pharmacy and sit down in the seat and strike up a conversation, it's easier to talk to people about, high blood pressure or diabetes and stuff. If you're talking to people about weight loss, I don't think you want to walk up to an overweight person and say, hey, tell me the deep emotional reasons why you don't want to be fat anymore. Not a good idea. But, if you can get someone talking about how they feel about wanting to lose weight, that's the best way I've found to do it, is just talk to a real live human being. That's the best way. If that's not available, then, online research is helpful. Usually, if you can go to a place online, if there are Facebook groups for people trying to lose weight and you just, look through the posts, oftentimes you'll find a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, forums or stuff like that, right? It's just in Portugal, we don't have this culture of telling people how we feel. Like, so it's going to be a bit harder for people here to discover that. But yeah, there's no other way to find it. You just have to do the work, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So we're reaching the end. Dan, I would love to, if you could tell us, if you had to choose a book about marketing, copywriting, entrepreneurship, and you needed to offer that to someone, which one would you choose?
Oh, you asked me a difficult question. There are so many books that I like on that topic. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now to see if there's any one in particular that stands out. Boy,
not Gary Halbert, no.
Gary Halbert's sons have kept a lot of his information on the market, and he had a book called, I take it back. The first book I thought of was How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time, which isn't totally about copywriting. It's more about direct response marketing and copywriting. But then he has another one that he wrote called the Boron Letters. That's all about copy, or a large portion of it's about copy. That's a really good book. And I know his sons remade that available on Amazon, so it's available for purchase even as a Kindle version. The original version of that book, it was literally copies of letters that Gary hand wrote to his son.
Yes.
So now it's a little bit more easy to read now that it's available as a Kindle book. But that's a really good book to start with.
That would be good. Amazing, Dan. At the end, so could you share with us how could people know more about you?
Probably the best place to do that would be at my main website at dobermandan.com.
Brilliant. There you'll find all the links to all the socials, I'm sure. And I'll put everything in the description. So, well, it was a pleasure. Dan, thank you so much for being at my show. You added a ton of value. And I think this is going to contribute for sure for many entrepreneurs in Portugal.
Oh, thank you, Tiago. I really appreciate the invitation.
Thank you very much. See you soon. Bom, foi o final do episódio número 38. Foi mais um daqueles episódios bombásticos. Muito obrigado pelo seu tempo. Espero que tenha gostado. Se gostou, deixe o seu gosto, partilhe com quem quiser. Faça todos os sociais e até ao próximo vídeo. Muito obrigado.